Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick, spiritual life coach and your host of Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal, but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. My guest this week is Samantha Gladden. Samantha is a shamanic ancestral healer, trauma healer, shamanic and African spirituality teacher, plant healer and spiritual homeopath. She works as a channel with spirit and her guides, helping clients heal and release trauma, including embodied trauma. She is passionate about helping clients heal their mind, body, spirit, and connect to their spirit guides, African divine powers, particularly their ancestors, creating a supportive and respectful relationship so their life blossoms with joy, creativity, abundance, and flow. During our conversation, Samantha shares her journey from accountancy to the experienced healer she is today, and also an interesting insight on how she's recognised that women who resolve their trauma tend to have less stressful transition during menopause. So as always, I begin by asking my guests, Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel that higher energetic resonance?
Well, many years ago, my ancestors guided me that when I do a shamanic healing, that I should work with song. I did many courses in order to be able to connect to spirit and channel healing songs for people when I'm doing shamanic healing sessions. Mm-hmm. So for me, when am I in higher energetic resonance? It is when I'm in the forest and I can be sitting by a tree. I can be looking out at a lake, and I am just tuning in to the frequency and the energy of the body of water or the spirit of the tree. And at those times also, sometimes songs actually come through, and it fills my heart with joy. I feel very connected, and I just feel very at peace and in harmony with all that is.
Beautiful. Thank you. So before we get into the meat and bones of our conversation, Samantha, I just want to give you an opportunity to speak about, your life to the extent that you're willing to share, but also how that plays into the work that you do today.
My whole family, my mother, my brother, myself, have always had allergies. We've always had hay fever. And so at 4 years of age, I developed hay fever sitting in I was at a sports day actually in school, sitting on the hard spiky grass in the hot sun. It's like, and the next thing I knew, I was sneezing and I was like, what's this? And I got home, my mum said, you got hay fever, everyone's got it. That sparked my journey of healing for that. And throughout my life, I'd always received dreams, I suppose prophetic dreams or guidance dreams. And I wasn't always sure where they came from, but I always remembered them and just watched and waited to see how my life would pan out and whether those dreams would actually come to pass. I took all the normal medication for hay fever, and slowly, as I was getting older, I was feeling that this isn't right, and I'm not supposed to be taking all of this. My body has the potential and the ability to heal itself. I just don't know how. Over time, I finished my A-levels, GCSEs, A-levels, did a degree in business studies. I then went on to train to be an accountant. And to train to be an accountant, you have to do loads and loads of exams. And they are 3-hour exams. And oh wow, did I get hit by anxiety. It was just huge, and it just, each time that I would go into these exams, I'd like literally be like a shaking wreck. And I knew the information. It was just really hard to kind of center myself and focus to be able to complete the questions. One day, I forgot to have breakfast when I was revising, and I had to get to Alexandra Palace. And I looked in the cupboard, and it was 12 o'clock, and I had to leave in half an hour. And I was just like, what am I going to eat? I can't go to the exam without having any food in my stomach. I just can't. So I pulled out a bowl of porridge, and I cooked it all up, and I did it Caribbean gourmet style with raisins and almonds and cinnamon and nutmeg, and I was like cooking it and thinking, this looks good. So I had this massive bowl of porridge at 12 o'clock, 20 past 12, and then rushed off to my exam. And I was really shocked at how calm and relaxed I was throughout the whole exam and when I got to the end. And I was like, And what I started to realise was through my life, Spirit had been giving me these little golden nuggets of wisdom, which were all to do with health and what my teacher described as sacred wholeness, but what they describe in Egypt as harmony. There is a particular Egyptian god called Ma'at, who she symbolizes harmony and justice and order and balance. So all these little golden nuggets, and that was one of the first ones that kind of came through. I trained to become an accountant. I finished, and I went on to do to actually start doing the work as an accountant. And in the meantime, I'm still taking all of these drugs for my hay fever. In the meantime, my hay fever's actually developed onto asthma as well. That happened at 19. And I'm still getting this feeling that's saying to me, no, you shouldn't be taking all these drugs. No, you need to find another way, Samantha, you need to find another way. So then I at the early, I think it was my early 30s, and I was guided to actually look at something called homeopathy. When I'd been hearing my friends talk about it, I was just like, I can't even understand what it is. It makes absolutely no sense. Usually you just take some tablets, it's some drugs, it fills you up and it gets rid of the symptoms. I don't get where this comes from. So I thought to myself, I heard this guidance coming in, and I went, okay, fine, I'm hearing you, and I will go and get a book on it, and I'll read it up. And I read this book by Miranda Castro, and it was brilliant. I got to the end of the book and I said, that's what I want to do. So at that time, I've still got this voice in my head saying, you shouldn't be taking all these drugs. So I went to a college, and I really liked the college and decided I wanted to study there. And I also asked them to recommend a homeopath. I started training as a homeopath. It was amazing. It really, really opened my eyes. And I found that over the course of seeing various different homeopaths, and I think I saw 3, and it took quite a while, my hay fever symptoms just lifted and floated away. And my asthma just lifted and floated away. I'd been seeing all of these amazing healings for clients whilst I was working on them, and then I qualified and I became a homeopath myself. That introduced me all into homeopathy, just listening to the guidance of my ancestors. And during this time, I also was studying meditation. I went to a Buddhist centre in Golders Green, it was, and one of my friends there, she had a beautiful picture of the Reiki kanji, and I asked, what is it all about? And she just said, Reiki, it's a form of healing. And I said, that sounds interesting. So I went off, went onto the internet again, looked it all up. I went, I want to do that. And so at this time, I'd actually sprained my wrist quite badly, and I was walking around with this wrist support. And so I thought it was really interesting, this Reiki, but I wasn't sure I actually really believed it. And so I made an appointment to see these 2 ladies in Golders Green again. And they said, okay, come in. And I laid down on this couch, and I felt like this whoosh of warmth, like just flowing through me for the whole 1 hour. And it just felt really soothing and really nurturing. And we got to the end of it, and it was fine. And I was saying thank you. and then the couch broke. Just like one of the couldn't believe what happened. The two legs just gave way, and I was just like, what's going on like this? And I mean, I was fine. It was just more of a jolt or anything, or it was just more of a jolt. And they said, oh, I'm really sorry, I'm really sorry, I'm really sorry. And it was a free session as well. And luckily I was fine. Looking back on it, I actually think that was Spirit's way of making me remember the experience. So it wasn't just that I'd had a healing out of it. It was like, so remember this. And so I walked in there wearing this wrist support, and I walked out and my wrist actually was really hurting. And I took it off and I was just going like this, and I was like, oh, my wrist is fine now. During the course of my 4 years training to be a homeopath, I also trained to be a Reiki master as well, and so started to give training courses on Reiki and how to use it. Everything was fine. I was practicing to be a homeopath. I was also, I was in practice as a homeopath. I was also working as an accountant as well, and I was also doing Reiki treatments, and that's how my my healing practice started. And then I became pregnant with twins, and I was in and out of hospital with high blood pressure, using remedies, using herbs in order to minimize the amount of drugs that I was on. I gave birth to them, and after the birth I felt as if I just wasn't right. Something had happened in that birthing process, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was, but I knew there'd been like a shift and it wasn't in the right direction. So I tried homeopathy, I tried all my Reiki as well, and all of it just wasn't enough. And at this time, I wasn't really used to having babies around me. And my mother had transitioned, and my mother-in-law had transitioned at this point. Oh, hang on a second. No, I've got that wrong. My mother-in-law transitioned, but my mother was really sick. She had dementia at that time. I was just in quite a low place because I had these two little babies that really needed me, and I didn't have an auntie who was around who could help. So it was literally just me and my husband, the twins, and that was it. And I found myself having to run away to a hotel, doing like a mini retreat for myself, having like massages and just having some time alone in solitude in order to just try and bring myself back to where I was originally, and it just didn't work. So it's like every month, it's like I'd be like, oh, this is too much, I've got to go. And I'd just get up, get in the car, run up to, I don't know, Nottingham or somewhere like that, spend 24 hours there, and then come back again. And then it'll be exactly the same situation in a month's time. The word shaman and shamanic healing had been circling around me with various friends. And I'd been like, what is it? I don't really get, and none of them could give me like a logical explanation that made sense to me. It just sounded like it was really, really up there, should I say. I think that's probably the best way of describing it. And I just thought, you know what, I need to do something, and I'm kind of like at the end of my tether here, and these babies need me, and I can't keep running off like that, because it's not fair on my husband. I went along to have a shamanic healing, and luckily at that time, I got a recommendation quite quickly. It took a while to actually get an appointment set up, but I got a recommendation quite quickly, and I went in and it changed my life. And I came out and I felt as if all that heavy energy had just been drained from me. And I felt as if I was back. I was back to my 150%, be able to function, 150% of my energy. I was just back. During that time, whilst I was waiting for this appointment to happen, I had one of those like guidance coming in again, and for some reason I just booked myself on a shamanic journeying course. I knew that there were helping spirits out there or spirit allies out there. I just didn't know how to connect to them properly, and so actually that's not true. That's not fair. I had received a meditation in Reiki, and I had connected to someone called Freya, who's like a Norse goddess, and Isis kind of came into my life at around about the same time. So I was connecting with these two, but it wasn't deep enough for my liking. I signed up for this shamanic journeying course, and so I went into central London, and it opened up my world. Usually people are in this earth realm and this one dimension, which is the earth realm. So you're born into it, you die, and then that's it. And so it kind of opened up my world that way, if you understand what I mean. So it just kind of gave me an appreciation of spirit allies in various different realms. I continued what they call journeying, meeting all these different allies. And then I was still practicing as a homeopath, still working as an accountant for a while. And then there was some complications with my son. So it was decided that I needed to give up the accountancy because it was demanding too much of my time. And I needed to be able to focus on him and taking him to various hospital appointments and things like that. So then I was 100% practicing as a healer. So I found myself drawn to all of these shamanic courses in one way or another. And it's every year, it's like, oh, what am I going to do shamanic course-wise? And I used to get really excited about it. And then after a couple of years, I was like, I can't keep doing all these courses because I'm just doing these courses and that's it. And it's like, well, where am I going with this? And so I sat down and I had a conversation with the ancestors and I just said, look, what should I do? And they said, well, you have a choice. You can either develop or you can just carry on doing these courses. I said, well, look, if you can find me a shamanic teacher in London, then I will do the training. Not expecting them to do it. 12 months and I was just searching on the internet for it because most of them were, I don't know, in Dorset or in Cornwall or in Nottingham or somewhere like that. So they were never in London. So I thought it's unlikely like this. And then all of a sudden, 12 months later, there she was. It's a shamanic healer in London teaching shamanic practitioner course. So I said, okay, I've got the message. So I started there and I did a 2-year shamanic practitioner course. That was amazing. It was quite challenging at times. Some of the ceremonies were amazing. That's probably the best way of describing it. And she was very good. She encouraged us to go out and actually start seeing clients. So we felt very supported whilst we were actually doing the training. I finished and then I've just had spirit and the ancestors guiding me as to where to go with my next layer of training. And they guided me very specifically and said, look, when we were doing this, we used to sing and we would sing healing for our clients. And I was, and they used to show me with the drums and they'd show me the chants. And I was like, okay. And they said, well, you need to do this. You need to start channeling these chants for healing for clients. And so I was like on a mission to try and find the right person who would be able to. So various different teachers I have worked with who have actually brought me to a place where I can channel from the creator, channel from spirit. And that's what brought me to this place now, really. As time kind of rolled on and I was seeing various clients shamanically as well as from a healer point of view. And then I had a traumatic event happen and that rolled me into the perimenopause. And so I woke up one morning with hot flushes and thought, I've seen this with various clients, so I'll take this remedy, that remedy. And my sleep started to become quite badly affected as well. And then I was suffering with brain fog. So I was kind of on a journey looking at the right remedies and the right herbs in order to bring me into balance with the perimenopause. And what happened was as time went on, my hormones shifted. And I just needed to make sure that I kept pace with what was going on. It wasn't just you take this herb and that's it for good. It's like an evolving journey. And what I realised and what I noticed with clients was that the ones that suffered with the mood swings were the ones that had trauma in their lives that they needed to actually work on. And that the menopause as a process is all about balancing your hormones, but also doing the shadow work. And if for me, as I could see working with clients and myself, if I didn't do the shadow work then my moods would be all over the place. And it really pushed me into a place of being an advocate for self-love and fierce self-love. And having twins, that can be quite a challenge. So a lot of my clients I see have the menopause. So I'm kind of like working with them on that journey as I'm going on that journey myself. And that brings me to the present situation.
Do you know what? It's interesting as well. You're the first person that I've heard speak about how self-love and shadow work and just doing the work in general plays into the experience of perimenopause and menopause. I've never heard anyone say, and I've spoken to people who've said things that are kind of align with levels of that. But especially as one, because I'm kind of in that age range. I haven't kind of stepped into any of those stages yet, but that's where I am. I'm 50, so it's on the doorstep for me at some point in time. So also being aware that if I pay attention to media or what my peers are going through, this is the conversation. But then noticing how different the experience has been, just depending on where everyone is through that journey, and then what they choose to make of it, and then who they become on the other side of it. And when you're saying something like that, if I just kind of cast a blanket glance on the different kind of experiences that have been relayed back to me, it just kind of made sense when you were saying that. I'm like, it's it makes it kind of I know you can't make a blanket statement. However, it's like, okay, so the women that I've spoke to that have come through their menopause and have been better for it, and also being able to kind of ride the ups and downs and being able to see on a different level, are ones who have done levels of work and continue to do levels of work. And it's the ones that are oblivious to that kind of that level of awareness of themselves and work, that have just fought it tooth and nail all the way through, and then are on the other side of it, like kind of experimenting with HRT and trying to get things all together as well. So like there's no real question that I'm asking you, like if you have something additional to add to that. But I'm just kind of, as you were saying that, I'm like, well, yeah, like that's probably one of the most clearest, most sensible things I've ever heard in terms of an explanation of it. And especially as well, and I think it might be just like Google listening to me, but when I'm on things like YouTube, the ads that will come up, obviously it's based on who I am and what I look at. And just again hearing ads for menopause or like all of those things that kind of get thrown at me because of the algorithm and everything like that. But the way that many women are presenting it, I think there's one, I don't even know what it's for, because I always kind of just like stop the ad. Yeah. Because I'm just like, I don't want to listen to this, because it's like they're like, oh, like how's menopause for you, and it's just like levels of literally that is and I'm like, no, like I don't want to be in denial about like a process, but I want to be in denial about an experience of a process, because the way that society throws it back at me is like, you've got this thing coming and it's probably going to be the ruination of your entire life.
Yeah.
So exactly. It's like it's great that you kind of correlate the two, that it's like, okay, like I know that I've done levels of work as well, like who's to say, because I've said the process hasn't started yet, what it's going to be when I actually like move through that. But to be aware and be cognizant of the ways that I can kind of assist and mitigate some of the like the darker aspects of it by dealing with those levels. I mean, do you kind of do deeper work on that as well? Maybe that's the question I want to ask you.
Well, for me, it's really made me think about my energy and how I use my energy, how I work with my energy. Because one of the things about this society is it's very much about it's very much driving people to work as hard as they can in order to survive. And so they are always, particularly for women, they are always working non-stop. They go to work and they're there 7 hours, 8 hours or whatever. They're coming home, they're tidying up, they're cleaning, they're cooking. If they've got children, they're looking after them as well. And well, if they've got one of those jobs which are very, very high pressure, then they could be working like 10 or 12 hours in one day, every day, and then taking more work home at the weekend. And if you add kids on top of that as well, it means that they're in a very energy output mode. And that is not healthy for the menopause. So this phrasing that I use about an advocate for self-love, fierce self-love, takes us into a completely different mode of being, to kind of recognize that that is not a healthy way of moving forward. And taking that on to the next step is to recognize, and this is one of the things that I ended up coming across a book by Sharon McCarlane called 13 Grandmothers Speak, which is very much about this balance between, or us trying to connect with our divine self. Let's start at that point, and then recognizing that our divine self is actually split into a feminine and a masculine, and seeing where are we in that balance when we are working and when we're at home, and at different times in the day and at different times in the month. And so what I came to realize was that we are mostly in like a yang mode, which is like an outward expression of energy all the time. And the only time when we go to that inward expression of energy is if we're on holiday, if we're lucky. But some people, even on holiday, don't understand that mode of being able to rest and relax. On holiday means swimming all the time. It means going on lots of tours, so they're still in that outward expression of energy whilst they're on holiday, when they're supposed to be resting for the 2 weeks. So it felt very much like we're very much in this, and that's myself included, very much on this whole yang, this whole unhealthy masculine energy. It's tipped the scales like that. And being in the menopause makes you actually come back up to having times and recognizing that you need times where you are going into more of a yin mode, more of a feminine mode, where you are resting, relaxing, and restoring yourself, or restoring myself and nourishing myself. Which means, when practically what that means is that you're sitting there reading a book, or for me, it means sitting there reading a book, or sitting in the garden, or sitting there singing to a lake, or having a really, really long bath with a whole stack of books next to me. And like having more times of just being able to sit back and just sit and have a cup of tea.
Right.
And doing not much else. A lot of clients that I see say that, oh, well, I'm having a massive mood swing and I don't know if it's the perimenopause, because I'm in that kind of space. And then a lot of the time I look at, so what's your diet saying? And I'm coming back to self-love. Are you eating breakfast? Well, actually, I don't feel like I need to. Yes, you do. Are you eating lunch? Sometimes. Yes, you do. Are you eating dinner? Yes, I definitely do eat dinner. So you're stacking all your food at the end of the day, when you're stacking all the food that gives you energy at the end of the day, when you're going to go to sleep. And you need to rejig that so that it's at the beginning of the day, when you actually need your energy to work and do whatever it is, you go to college, uni, whatever it is that you need to do. And just doing that simple thing of making sure, it's a very practical thing, it's a really obvious thing, but there are so many clients of mine who were doing this fast or that fast or whatever. And so for me, I didn't feel that whole mood swings, touch wood, so far. I've been in it for 9 years, so like I've been in it for 10 years. So I didn't feel all the heavy duty mood swings, because I made sure I always had breakfast, I always had lunch, I always had dinner, and all of the foods that we ate were, I use the phrase brown foods. So when I say that, what I mean by that is whole grain rice, it's whole grain pasta, it's all of those kind of food, whole grain bread. And so that really helped to balance me personally. So that was one adjustment, and that was just a simple diet. So in terms of balancing this whole masculine, feminine, divine self, let's use that phrase. We can do that by looking at our moon cycles. And if you're not on a moon cycle, you can just follow the moon. And there's a very good reason why it's called a moon cycle, because it's like 31 days or 28 days. And so just following the energy, and I know what it was like for me when I was following my energy. I would notice that on day 27, I'd feel really knackered just before my period, and then I'd have my period or my moon cycle, my moon flow, and then I'd be knackered all the way through it, and then I'd get to the end of it, and then it would take a few days, and then it would be ovulation time, and I'd feel like I had a lot more energy, and then the whole cycle would start again. And being aware of that flow of energy is actually telling us something, that if we're tired, sit down and do nothing.
Yeah, which is, like you say, counter to society's messaging as well, of the do and that whole kind of thing. And what's interesting about that, if I kind of think about myself, even though like for the most part I'm here working and doing my own stuff, like no one's telling me what to do or when to do it, but there's still like this little bit of like, shouldn't you be doing something though? It's like, well, this doesn't need to be done today, or there's nothing that needs to be done now, or there's still that underlying like kind of like nudge, and there's like I have no external boss coming and nudging me, so I don't have that level of stress, but there's still like an awareness of or a feeling that something should be done. And like you're saying, but sometimes the thing that needs to be done is that you just need to sit down or go to sleep for half an hour, and not feel bad about it. But yeah, it's interesting where you're going with this as well. And I wanted to speak to you about how the spirituality melds with the homeopathy. I know you kind of spoke about it before, but just kind of bringing that in as well. Like, is there something that you're adding additionally to the practice of homeopathy, which in itself is for people who want, the pill, the box with the blister pack and the instructions, to then have something different? How do you then kind of bring in the spiritual aspect to the practice of homeopathy? Yeah.
So it will probably be helpful to actually explain what homeopathy is. Homeopathy treats the cause of the symptoms, not just the symptoms themselves. So for me, I'm always asking questions as to what happened when you first started feeling that symptom. What was going on in your life? Did you have any arguments? Were there any changes of jobs? Did you move house? So we're trying to get to the bottom of exactly where did this all start. So we're not into palliative care. That's not what homeopathy is about. The premise is like cures like. So your podcast is titled Higher Energetic Resonance. From a shamanic point of view, everything has a spirit. Everything also has an energy. Everything has a frequency. Every substance and every being has a frequency and an energy. So when we are ill, that illness has a frequency and an energy. Homeopaths will look for a substance that also, if you take enough of it, it will cause a similar illness. And what we do is we take the frequency of that illness from that substance and we give it to a client in order to neutralize the symptoms. It works on the basis of quantum physics, but that is what homeopathy is doing. It's energetically neutralizing the symptoms, and they just gradually, slowly disappear, and then that's it. That's the basis of homeopathy. It's extremely old. It looks like it's only been around for 200 years. The person that developed it was a German philosopher and translator called Samuel Hahnemann, who was actually investigating malaria and a treatment for malaria. But he he developed it from a premise of the like cures like, developed by Imhotep, who was a philosopher and an architect and a physician in Egypt. So it's extremely, extremely old. So in terms of the process with me, when clients come to see me in a consultation, my allies and my guides tell me what questions to ask. So I will be asking them questions, and then we'll shift, and I will say, I can either tell you what I think is going on because my guides are telling me, or I can ask you a whole load of questions and you can then tell me, and it's completely up to you. That's right.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time they'll say to me, okay, you tell me what you think is going on just by looking at me, and then I can say yes or no. And I'll say, okay, well, I think that you're feeling this because of what happened. And if you're not feeling that because of what happened, why are you not feeling like that? Because if it had happened to me, that's how I would feel.
Mm.
And we end up going deeper and deeper and deeper into the conversation as to what are they feeling, and is that really true for them? And it's at that point when we've actually got to the bottom of feeling those emotions and actually looking at what patterns that they are using when they're interacting in their life. Are those patterns healthy or not? So I counsel them around the patterns and how to navigate those patterns so that they can release them. And I also provide them with homeopathic remedies, which actually form the bridge to them releasing physical symptoms and actually releasing emotional symptoms so that the emotion can come up and come out and be expressed and released. And it's at the point when they release it where the shift happens and they start to feel, I'm completely different to when I first came in, and I can't even remember the symptoms that I came with. And I'm sitting there saying to them, okay, well, how is this, this, and this? Oh, did I really tell you all of that? Yes, I did. Yes, you did. That's what I've got written down here. I promise you we're both in here together. So that's how my spirit allies, my guides, work with me whilst I'm in a consultation. So my consultations are probably a little bit longer than other people's, and I ask questions which may not feel that they are pertinent to the actual illness that the person's come in with, but they kind of get to the bottom of why it is their body ended up expressing this illness in the first place, or why their soul started expressing these symptoms in the first place. Because for me, it's very much about we are living this life or experiencing this life to learn and to also try and enjoy. How can I put it? It's like a soul in a physical body going through this life, learning and trying to engage in joy and to try and find that joy and to try and engage in your mission, whatever that mission is. So there are a couple of purposes as to why we are this soul in this physical body. And shamanism, what shamanism does, from my experience, is it expands your experience of what a soul is and what a soul is doing. So you see before they are actually born what happens, and you see after they die what happens, and that's when we're walking into the world of the ancestors, or not, as the case may be, because ancestors are defined as certain people, whilst there are others which are just dead people.
What I was going to ask is what would instigate the or not part of it? You know what you just said now.
Right. Okay. So from an African viewpoint, ancestors are revered. They are people that led an upright life. They are people that helped others. They are people that were respectful to others. They were people that were truthful and supportive. They were people that lived their lives with honour and could get to the end of it and say, I lived a life and I can put my hand on my heart that I did it truthfully and honestly and with love. And I can leave it with respect, knowing that, yes, I'm going to miss the people that I loved when I was in that life, but I did my best and I didn't treat people badly. And if you don't fall in that, in that level, then it's just, you're just treated as, you're just a dead person. That's it. And which means you get forgotten.
Okay.
And if you're an ancestor, you are, as an African context, African paradigm, you are remembered and you are honoured and you are asked for help. And you are gladly willing, as a spirit, as a soul, you are happy to give that help to your descendants.
How are we doing as humans? I know it's a big question, but you know, because
really big question.
You know, because you know, these are the things that I think about on a random Tuesday. It's like, how are we doing? Like, are we like evolving? Are we expanding? Are we awakening? You know, there's so many levels of revelations that kind of come up in the world, and people learn more about themselves, people learn more about the world, and then they do with it as they may. You know, it might be the transformation of some people. It might be the wake-up call for people to actually kind of get on and do and live with purpose, or for others it's just, you know, too much and they kind of go deeper into their denial about things. But just as a kind of general feel, and in terms of the level of awareness and self-awareness and willingness to do work that you feel from your clients, do you notice that there is like more openness, more awareness, or not? You know, like are things changing? Are we evolving, albeit incrementally?
It's a really interesting question, because there are certain people that definitely are. They are definitely ascending their frequency. And I get a lot of calls from potential clients saying, I've had a spiritual awakening, I'm not sure what to do with it. I've had all of these abilities just switch on and I don't know what to do with it, which is amazing and brilliant. But there are certain elements of the society who are in denial, and who are, I'm not going to go into politics, but most people are very, very aware of what's going on. And with the pandemic and all the rest of it, that there is like it's almost as if we were like on a middle ground, and then because there's been like a split, so there are some which are really ascending and doing the work and trying to find out what is their soul purpose, and actually trying to work out how can I fit my soul purpose in my life, and really connecting and channeling amazing information. And there are some which are just kind of slowly not, they're just like dropping down into a whole other different way of being, which is a lower vibration than what they were at 10 years ago. And it's a really interesting experience to observe this in society and just think, right, well, actually, I want to be in that ascending frequency mode, ascending and being in that frequency of light and support and kindness and love for people, rather than in that whole, well, what's in it for me kind of scenario. And unless there's something in it for me, then, you know, and I'm only in it for me and that's it. And I don't really care about the person next door.
Yeah, that, yeah.
I don't know if that's been your experience or what you've seen in your practice.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's always been like, I feel like I've always been an observer anyway of things. And I've always been a questioner, because, you know, it's like, well, why? And, you know, I can't say that I have any more of the answers now, but just staying in the questions, just continually being observant of things has kind of put me on a different track and a different kind of idea of what life is all about, and always wanting to try and do things that were answering and not insulting or denying my soul, denying my talents, you know. So which is one of the reasons, like, all through my life, that I've just been a horrible employee, simply because you know, I just like, not, you know, just because there's always been part of me just going, this ain't it, you know, the voice that just won't shut up sometimes, and like won't allow me to just kind of settle for the check, really. Because had I have, you know, I consider myself to be quite a diligent and hardworking person, so perfect employee if I applied myself to the role. But, you know, when you're talking to someone that's got like being told constantly that this ain't it, and will make me uncomfortable, if I kind of, you know, it will allow me to kind of stay in a place for a while if I need to kind of like build up some funds or do a certain amount of thing. But then when it gets to the point where I might be kind of like digging my feet in there and trying to get a bit comfortable, it kind of like, it doesn't feel comfortable, or I feel myself. I know I can feel it in myself. One, that I feel it in my body, then I'll notice that I start to my behavior ain't great. Is never behavior that I'm proud of, because then I'll start to blow up a situation to get myself out of there. And, you know, so when I start going in a way where I'm like, you shouldn't have done that, Carol. And it's like but part of me is like, yeah, well, we've got to get her out of here somehow. I mean, we literally got to burn the bridge for her, because she's not just getting up and walking away, you know. So it's always something like that. So there's always been that element of me just wanting to explore and find out and go and hit all the dead ends and all the wrong things, because I've learned so much by doing all of those things and moving myself out of anything that was comfortable. Not that anything was for any length of time. So I've always been that kind of person, always kind of question things, always at least giving myself an ear to any kind of conspiracy, because there's usually a level of some sort of truth or questioning to go down. You know, there's a lot of dead ends and rubbish out there, but then there's also a lot of alternative ways of looking at things and taking things on, that mean that it, like, nothing should be completely poo-pooed. You know, at least give it an ear, like at least give it like a couple of sentences before, you know, over time your discernment grows, so that you'll be like, no, it's like, that's full and total BS. But or sometimes there's going to be some level of it. So I've always been aware of it. And then also with all the different kind of modalities and spiritual practices that I've kind of meandered through on my like search of like, what is this all about? Which, you know, if you kind of look through it at the time, it's like, where's this girl going? What is she looking for? And now where I'm at, I'm like, what I was looking for was just seeing the truth and the lies in all of these different spiritual modalities, what the common thread was. And there was a purpose for me going all over the place, that if you look from the outside, it just looked like I didn't know where I was going and I was lost. It wasn't. It was just like, that was where I had to go to be here and to be able to kind of speak with the awareness that I have now. And, you know, I'm by no means at the end of any kind of road. So I was always aware of very different religions, spiritual practices, modalities, like, that always had this awareness of there being a split at some point anyway. And it was like, well, what's that going to look like? You know, there's like kind of like memes on social media where like literally two earths separate, or like some people, like you have the ascension or the rapture, and some people float off into the clouds, you know, that there's going to be some level of split. And so, but the real the height of it was in recent times, just over the past 3 years, when you literally saw how people were looking at the world and what they were seeing and what they were believing. And it was I think it's like a Bible verse where you have two people in the fields together, and they're just literally just seeing the world completely differently based on what they're taking in, and then also what they're doing as a result of those things. So when that whole thing happened, for some reason, the minute it got announced, I knew that was it. Don't ask me why, but I was like, this is like the gear change now. And that's when I really, and I think that's when a lot of people who may not have necessarily considered themselves, or even to this day consider themselves spiritually aware, felt that they had an awakening, that like something got taken from their eyes and they saw the world differently. And it was then the way that they kind of reacted or responded to it, then, like we were talking about, menopause dependent on the amount of work that they'd done in terms of how they were able to kind of handle themselves in the face of like disagreement, or people kind of poo-pooing or excluding them. Like, you know, for me, it's like, well, I've always been an outsider, so like, what's different? You know, it's like, welcome to my club now. You know, I can guide you through it. I know what it's like to be on the fringes. So for me, that was where I was like really seeing it like played out massively, in terms of like, you can see it on the streets, you can literally taste and feel it. Whereas beforehand, it was like a more subtle thing that, you know, you'd have to kind of just, you know, like kind of be around someone and you get an idea of, you know, they'd say a few things just generally, and get an idea of where they're at. But more so now, definitely, I think there's a sense of purpose, and particularly for people who are really kind of getting an idea and seeing how ridiculous things are getting now.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not even like they're subtly, like it's not even like they're subtly ridiculous. It's like there are certain things that if you're on board with it, you have to have taken leave of your senses to allow that to
happen. I completely agree with you.
You know what I mean? But, like before, it would be like, oh, it's subtly, you know, like you, if you want to call it politics, which it's the playground basically. It's just like pantomime left and right, doesn't matter. But you know, before it'd be like, oh, you kind of like ascribe to that kind of thing, and you're on this side, and it's like you can see it's like, well, subtly this and subtly that. But now it's like, if you're literally buying and repeating that and regurgitating that and believing it 100%, you some part of the aspect of common sense and connection with reality and truth more so has left the building with you. You know. So that's what I'm seeing now. It's and what I'm seeing is that people who have really been consumed by the ridiculous, you know, not even to name anything, but the people who are consumed by the ridiculous that is based on nothing true are deep in some sort of emotional it comes from a deeper place of longing, you know, to be able to kind of be brought into ideas that make no sense whatsoever. It's like, it's not even like opinion now. It's like, you know, you're buying lies and you're trying to hold on to lies. It's like, it can't end well. So it'll be interesting to see as time goes on where things go, because I think, you know, at the moment things have swung so far one way that the momentum of it, when it kind of lets go, we'll probably take it to the other end for a moment before, you know, there's some settlement, you know. So people kind of swing on either side, and I think the ones that are finding a way of ascension, looking at all of it and just going, it's madness either way, like, I'm coming out. You know, so I don't know what you feel about that.
Yeah, I think I'm just very much like yourself, just observing it all and just really being very aware of what is truth and what isn't truth, and just staying on the right track, the track that is respectful, the track that is kind, the track that loves people, and just letting go of the rest of it.
Yeah, because you just wake up every day sometimes and scratch your head and go like, come on now. You know,
come back to reality, please.
Yeah, but it's, you know, and just, you know, like wanting to be like, I'm not even going to lend my voice to any of this other than to sit back and go like everyone has to go through their own journey. We've all been deceived by things over the course of our own lifetime. You know, sometimes like the majority of us have the benefit of doing it with the comfort of our kind of smaller peer group. Like, social media just gives voice to too many people to kind of like you know, amplify their delusions at the moment. But it's an interesting moment in time. And then I think also what I'm trying to do is just think about when the dust settles, or when this kind of pendulum of like veering from one extreme to the other slows itself down. For those who have not been completely traumatized by the whole thing, will need some sort of sanctuary. And it's the ones that are just kind of pulling back and just letting people just play the game, that are just having the opportunity to start to build and create something new, so that when we move forward, because these are cycles, things can't go on forever. When we move forward, there are at least like some safe havens. And you know, and if people go, well, like, how did you know? It's like, well, you know, it didn't make sense to me. It didn't make sense to me. So yeah, as we're kind of wrapping up now, just can you let everyone know if you've got anything coming up in terms of work, and how to reach out to you if you've got any new programs or anything like that coming up?
Okay, so my email address is sam@samanthagladden.com. So if anyone would like to contact me, my website is samanthagladden.com. And I have a new retreat that I'm really excited about. It's called Menopause and Heart Healing Retreat with Rose. And it's a mini retreat. I could take it for a whole day quite easily, but it's a mini retreat. It's a half a day, and I will be exploring and sharing various different herbs and homeopathic remedies that can be used to actually help navigate the menopause with grace and energy, as well as working on particular organs in the body which are designed to support us through the menopause. And I'll also be sharing various meditations with the plant spirit Rose for heart healing and just balance and harmony for the whole mind, body, spirit of us, just to bring us into that place of high energy resonance, really, and sacred wholeness. So that will take place on the 30th of September. So if anyone is interested, then drop me an email. I will be writing, literally, it came to me today, and I was thinking, Rose, Rose would like to come forward, which was just really beautiful. So I will be writing the information for that in the next day or so. But if anyone is interested before then, just let me know, and then I can send them through some information.
Thank you so much, Samantha. It was a great chat that could have gone on for way longer, but I appreciate your time and your wisdom today. I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute delight. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha, for sharing your wisdom with me and for a great conversation. And thank you for listening. You can find out more about me on my website, which is carolmaywhittick.com, CarolMaywhittick.com. The Embody Higher Energetic Resonance journey is still there for you to take. It's 3 steps closer to becoming the woman of your dreams. The link is in the show notes, as is the link for you to find out more about working directly with me on a one-on-one basis in my personalized spiritual life coaching program. You can find me on Facebook under Carol May Whittick, Kazmic, Cazmick on Instagram. So until the next episode, enjoy your week. Thanks for listening. Take care.